pepper. Put it on the side. To finish the dish, I saute some fresh fennel.
These are fresh fennel leaves. Then the liqueur Pernod is also added.
Put a little bit of Pernod. Excuse me.
Sir.
Put the crab meat in the middle. Put some salmon caviar in it. And finish it with the fennel.
When Bradley Ogden went to work at the American restaurant in Kansas City, he began an intense identification with American cooking that has held through several restaurants in San Francisco, including the Lock Creek Cafe in the Bay Area. He shows this with barbecued leg of lamb. Lamb pieces are marinated, started by rubbing crushed garlic onto them.
And then take a little Dijon mustard and about 2 tablespoons and just rub that into the, adds a really great flavor to it. That into it. And then just take a few fresh thyme leaves, about 6 fresh thyme leaves, and a little bit of olive oil just to lightly coat it. And let that marinate for 5 or 6 hours or overnight.
The marinated meat is seasoned with salt and pepper.
Now this will take probably about 15 minutes or so. And then we'll just add a little olive oil to it, and we'll baste this occasionally with our chipotle barbecue glaze. And then start it skin side down on your grill. Next step is to make our chipotle barbecue glaze. And really a quite simple recipe. It'll take 15 to 20 minutes on the stove. We're going to add our chili sauce, which is 1.5 cups. Molasses, 1/4 cup of molasses. We're going to add 1/4 cup of water. One tablespoon soy sauce. A tablespoon of brown sugar. 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. 2 cloves mashed chopped fine of garlic, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, a teaspoon of Tabasco, a teaspoon of Worcestershire, a teaspoon of chili flakes.
Red and green jalapeno and poblano peppers are also added.
Doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to end up straining the sauce. They may want a little bit hotter, but I think that you'll find this is plenty hot. And the best part of this glaze is the chipotle, which is a dried smoked jalapeno. And we're just going to, these are very hot, and you gotta be very careful not to use too much, but we'll just add 1 small, and this is canned. You can get them dried, and but this is canned in adobe sauce. Okay, we'll just stir this all in, and then we'll let this simmer for about 15 minutes, and then we'll strain it out. Again, just baste the butterfly leg of lamb during 3 or 4 times during its cooking time. I'm going to just turn that over and baste the other side just a little bit.
Corn cakes are started with creamed corn, milk, minced jalapenos, salt, and pepper.
Okay, now we want to add a 1/2 cup of yellow cornmeal to this slowly. Just stir it in until it's evenly dissolved. And then our 1/2 cup of buttermilk.
After the mixture has thickened, it's taken off heat and a yolk is added.
And then stir in the egg yolk. Add 1/4 cup of chopped scallions.
1 egg white is whipped to soft peaks and incorporated. The corn cakes are cooked in butter until golden.
And this griddle is about 350 degrees.
The lamb and corn cakes are served with mixed greens, dressed in olive oil and balsamic vinegar.
Our goat feta, we'll just sprinkle that over the top of the salad. And sprinkle some of the onions on top as well. And then an extra little treat, we have some arugula flowers, which are edible, and then some borage flowers here, which are also edible. So we're going to take our lamb, then we'll slice it against the grain.
Let the lamb rest before carving.
Again, I like it a little bit on the rare side. And this was this cooked for about 12 to 15 minutes. And again, you want to let it sit when it comes off the grill for a few minutes. So it's beautiful, nice and juicy. And then we'll just put a couple slices here with the salad. And then we'll brush that with a little bit of the chipotle glaze. Griddled corn cakes. Now, one more dimension. This, if you happen to have these wild garlic around, especially in the springtime, And we'll just garnish it with a little spring onion as well. Enjoy.
Now from Disney World in Orlando, pastry chef Darryl Mickler takes the stage. He learned Southern cooking tradition from his grandmother and had blossomed into both academic and practical training in several Southern Florida restaurants. Here is his Calvados soufflé with cider sabayon.
What we do to begin with, we'll slice off the top third of this apple, as well as the base. Brush it lightly with a little lemon juice to prevent browning. Okay? And then from here, we'll gradually take scoops of the apple flesh, leaving about a 1/4-inch wall of apple so that we have some support when we actually go to base this. You can use pretty well whatever variety of scoop that you have available. I'm using a larger scoop to take it out, and then I'll take another apple and peel it and make small balls for our garnish.
A predominant flavor with this dish is Calvados. Using 2 pans, equal amounts of butter and sugar are melted in each.
Okay, now we'll add some of our apples here into our saute pan. Just allow those to cook real nice, let them start browning. Here, in our second saute pan, add just a dash of Calvados and let that flame off. Calvados is a French apple brandy. If you can't obtain that, a good choice as far as a domestic product would be Applejack. And to experiment with, you can do it after you've made it. You might want to experiment with flavors, adding a little bit of orange, Grand Marnier, something along those lines. Take our pastry brush and lightly brush the inside of the apple. This will further prevent it from browning, and it's also going to add a nice bit of flavor along the outside, forming a light sugar crust and highlighting that Calvados and apple that we're looking for.
A sabayon is started by beating egg yolks and sugar.
At this point, we'll add in our apple juice, or apple cider rather, and just a little bit of Calvados and start to whisk that in. This will start to incorporate nicely.
Then the mixture goes over not quite boiling water and is whisked until light and fairly thick. Then it's taken off heat and cooled before presentation. The soufflé mixture also starts by whisking egg yolks and sugar together.
While I'm doing this, my student here, Bill, has been whipping together the egg whites. The 4 egg whites have been mixed together, whipped together. We've added sugar to them also after they reach the light peak stage. The light peak will show when you can basically lift the whip out, and it'll form a peak at the tip that'll start to bend as it's held upright. We reach this point. We'll again add in a tablespoon of Calvados. And now that that's been nicely incorporated, take my egg whites. Taking the egg whites, I'll take a small amount and briskly whisk that in. Taking approximately 1/4 of the egg whites. Once this has been nicely incorporated, we gently take the remainder and we'll begin to fold this in, taking care not to break up these nice mounds, to make sure that we get all that air that's been incorporated will remain with us and ensure a successful soufflé. very gently folding in the egg whites into our egg yolk base. Take our apple base that we've utilized previously and add in that souffle mixture. Okay. Just shake it here and there to make sure that the souffle mixture goes all the way down. And lightly round the tops, which will help ensure a nice, attractive shape when it comes out of the oven.
Bake at 350 degrees for 10 to 12 minutes. For presentation, a plate is mirrored with the Savoyard sauce and the sautéed apple balls, and small scoops of apple sorbet are placed on the plate. Then the souffle is placed in the center, garnished with candied orange rind, and finished with powdered sugar.
Welcome to Great Chefs, a culinary tour of the United States featuring some of the country's finest chefs.
Today we begin with Elizabeth Terry in Savannah. She demonstrates making dough in a food processor used in individual tarts filled with oysters and country ham. The entree is prepared by Philippe Boulot in Portland, Oregon. He coats a Chinook salmon filet with pesto and serves it with a tomato and spinach Napoleon. Finally, from St. Paul, Minnesota, Ken Goff cooks a dessert, white chocolate custard poured over fresh raspberries and garnished with a dark chocolate sauce. The appetizer is prepared at Elizabeth on 37th in Midtown Savannah. The gracious chef owner, Elizabeth Terry, has won virtually every serious culinary award out there. In 1997, she won the Cervena Plates Cuisine for the Southeast region. Today, she cooks oyster tarts with leeks and country ham.
Just have the Cuisinart. We'll put in flour, a little cornmeal, which adds to the texture and the flavor of the crust, and diced butter. Want to be certain that it's cornmeal texture. We just mix it until there's a ball formed in the food processor.
Cold water was added.
Take it out of the food processor. I just knead it once, just so that it'll form a nice clump. You don't want to overhandle pastry. And that's ready to go. It does need to chill. We'll sprinkle the board with a little flour. You can also roll this in between saran wrap or parchment paper. Roll the dough really as thin as it will go, turning it just once or twice so that you're certain that you can get it off the board. The little dark specks that you see in the crust are from the cornmeal. Turn it once more so that I'm certain I can get it off the board. Yep. The cornmeal also helps make the crust nice and crispy. Well, just lay the crust, press it into the form, and we need to prick it so that it doesn't, so that it holds its shape with the fork, and that just goes on a baking sheet.
Bake the pastry at 425 degrees for about 10 minutes. The filling begins by sautéing country ham in butter.
I can add the thyme now also because we really want that nice country ham and thyme flavor. I just want to sauté the country ham a little bit until it sizzles, so that'll take just a minute. You want to brown the ham just a little bit. There's a little bit of fat around the edges of the country ham. I've trimmed that off so that this is really very lean. Deglaze the pan with a little sherry. Do we want the fire? Yeah. Add just a pinch of flour. The heavy cream. The oysters. These oysters have been drained, and you can use the broth for another recipe for a soup. And then leeks. We use the white and green parts of the leeks. Just a tiny bit more cream. Just cook the oysters until the edges begin to curl, and the leeks will just soften a bit, but still keep their bright green color. We'll pour the oysters into the pastry shell, or spoon the oysters into the pastry shell. One on top. I'm going to add a little minced fresh tarragon. I don't like to mince herbs too fine. I like to see what they are. And I always add fresh herbs at the end, such as tarragon. And then just decorate the plate with a little pepper sauce. This is green pepper sauce and red pepper sauce. And that's our oysters with leeks and country ham.
Philippe Boulot is executive chef at the Heathman Hotel in Portland. Born in France, he attended a hotel and catering school. Then after compulsory military service, began work in a long string of hotels. He also cooked at the famed Maxime's in Paris. His entree is roasted salmon with pesto crust.
So you have a fillet of salmon. This one is a Chinook salmon, wild salmon. It's called also king salmon. So we season it, salt and pepper. I keep the skin on, scale, and you have to take the bones here, pick up all the bones, and there's none anymore. We season it, salt and pepper. Okay, and now we do the pesto crust. So we put bacon, ground up bacon, applewood smoked bacon, the pine nuts, basil, chopped up basil. I'm going to keep some, might be a bit too much, like that. Breadcrumb, garlic, chopped up garlic, Parmesano, splash of virgin olive oil. You take cold first press olive oil, something really fruity and spicy. Let's blend everything. Spread it on the salmon. It's easier to use your hand sometimes. What we have to do after is to cut portion. Like a 7 ounce, 8 ounce portion. We reserve that for something else. We color the salmon in a Teflon pan. We're going to serve it with an onion relish. The onion relish is made out of red onion, sweat with a little bit of olive oil. We add some lemon juice, we reduce the lemon juice. We add grated ginger, garlic, capers, chopped cilantro and parsley, and we let it cool down, season it, and that's going to be the sauce, red onion relish. We're going to serve it with sauteed spinach, layered by oven-dried tomatoes. So thin slice of tomatoes, sprinkle with coriander, thyme, salt and pepper, and we dry them in the oven. At 200 for 2 or 3 hours till they are totally dry like a wafer. So let's do the dish. Teflon Teflon pan, touch of olive oil. I like to color the crust because the breadcrumb and the parmesano melt and give it a crispiness. And if you try to bake it completely in the oven directly, you won't have this crispiness and coloration on it. When it's colored like that, we slice it up in the normal pan, up. It goes in the oven, nice coloration, it's kind of a crust, and we bake it in the oven at 400. After that I'm going to saute the spinach. First I take a little bit of shallots. It's more convenient for me to blanch the spinach because it takes less volume, but if you have raw spinach, properly washed, that's a good time to saute them. For the recipe we're going to use blanched one. Okay, so to build up the plate, I'm going to use 3 wafers of oven-dried tomatoes, like that. And I use panis. Panis, it's like chickpea flour cooked with chicken stock, flavored with cumin and coriander, salt and pepper. Cook it really thick to a good paste. Whisk it really well to give it a good body, to bring the gluten. And layer it in a sheet pan like that. Cover it with oil pepper. And when it's really dry, it's like a type of polenta. We cut it in little square. Roll them in cornmeal and fresh thyme. And we deep fry them. Let's build a little Napoleon of spinach. I like the flavor of the oven-dried tomatoes. It's kind of spicy and it's really concentrated. Some onion relish. We serve the salmon. This one is a bit raw, but like that, on top of it. And voila.
Ken Goff is from the Midwest and proud of it. At his popular Dakota Bar and Grill in St. Paul, the menu often reflects his Scandinavian heritage. It's not unusual to find lingonberries or gravlax served alongside hearty meat and potato fare. Here he prepares white chocolate custard.
I'm going to cook a dessert that's nice when fresh raspberries are in season, tasting really sweet. It includes, it's a custard, and in the foundation is white chocolate, which the recipe requires to have melted. And you want to do that over hot water, not boiling water. It's somewhat delicate. After we melt that, we're going to melt a mixture of whole butter, bittersweet chocolate, and a small amount of corn syrup. We start by whisking one whole egg very thoroughly. And to it, we add just a little bit of sugar. It doesn't take much because the white chocolate is sweetened. A small amount of grated zest of orange, and really just a little bit of vanilla extract. On this burner, I'm going to scald some heavy cream. This doesn't work the same with milk or with half and half or light cream. It's easier to make with the cream. For 6, 2 cups of cream, 1 pint is enough. Our white chocolate is almost melted, and it won't take very long for this cream to scald. You don't want to boil it, just heat it up good. 150 degrees is all right if you have a thermometer. Our cream is where we need it to be. We're going to temper in some of this, maybe half or so. Mix it well, and then we take that warmed egg mixture and work it in little at a time to the white chocolate. If you pour it in all at once, sometimes it'll want to get lumpy, even though it will look like it's seizing up a little bit when you first start. Don't worry about it. And the remainder of the scalded cream is stirred thoroughly in. You don't want to use bruised fruit for this because the juice will flow into the custard and it won't set properly. So make sure you use all whole fruit without any juice clinging to them. And they're ready to go into the preheated 200-degree oven
for 30 to 35 minutes.
Careful getting them in. You won't need to be quite so careful wringing them out. And you can just drizzle some bittersweet chocolate over the top. A leaf of fresh mint, if you like, a fresh pansy is nice.
Welcome to Great Chefs, a culinary tour of the United States featuring some of the country's finest chefs.
The starter comes from Sanibel, Florida. Chef Danny Melman offers a trio of shellfish: blue prawn, spiny lobster, and shrimp with a toasted coconut sauce. Then from the Sheraton Seattle Hotel and Towers, Monique Barbeau presents a variety of shellfish with a tomato-based sauce. The dessert is from Tallahassee, Florida, and the exclusive Governor's Club. Pastry chef Stephanie Quigley separates meringue discs with a white chocolate buttercream. Danny Melman, chef-owner of the popular Greenhouse Grill on Sanibel, is a Pennsylvania native. However, he has become a real booster of Southeast Florida's tropical-tinged cuisine. A good example is his entree, a trio of shellfish coupled with a toasted coconut dressing, fired up with jalapeno pepper. The sauce for the dish includes a roasted jalapeno pepper, here done right on the surface of a flat-top burner.
Egg yolks, rice wine vinegar, fish sauce, oyster sauce, coconut milk, unsweetened. If you're doing this, you can use sweetened coconut milk or Coco Lopez or something, but it's got such an overpowering sweetness. For anything with coconut, for sweetener, we use palm sugar, which is a natural coconut sugar. And then most of the garnish, except for the cilantro, I add in at the end, which is the diced bell peppers. And we'll just put this toasted jalapeno. I toast the jalapeno just to brings out the flavor and the heat. Rub the skin off it. Take the seeds out of it. This dish needs a salty, sweet, hot. That's why we use a combination of things that we do. The oils in the fish sauce and the oyster sauce, the jalapeno, the palm sugar, the coconut. They have a nice combination and effect in the mouth. We call it a dressing. Depending on what dish we're doing, we might call it a vinaigrette or a creamy vinaigrette. All pretty much the same idea. I think I have all my ingredients in there. I just let that start mixing. I add in my sesame oil, slowly drizzling that in. And then vegetable oil to the desired consistency. It gets pretty thick. In a robaku, because it spins so fast, the more oil you add, the thicker it gets. You could make it into a mayonnaise and then thin it back down if you'd like. So, I'm not using all this. I think in my recipe I call for a tablespoon of each. 2 tablespoons, but typically. The final ingredient after the peppers have gone in is the toasted coconut. And you don't want to toast it too brown, but you want a fair amount in there. Just like the peppers, when it's in the bowl, you're not really going to see it, but it'll stay relatively crisp, believe it or not. And when you lay it out onto the plate, that'll also come through as the peppers have.
The marinade for the shellfish includes jalapeno and the fiery habanero pepper.
Roasted jalapenos or going into scotch bonnets and habaneros and things. All we do with this really is split it. I don't do much else with that, and that adds the necessary heat. Oyster sauce, once again, and coconut milk in there. Some fresh chopped herbs. We use cilantro and tarragon. And we mix this stuff up. Now this we tend to do the marinade ahead of time. The lobster.
The shrimp and prawn are peeled and the spiny lobster is cut in half lengthwise.
And what you want to do is you want to shake that around a little. Okay. You can start it like that. It takes about 2 hours. We marinate these about 2 hours. We'll flip them back and forth. The shrimp, we marinate for about an hour. So as I said, this would be one portion using half of this lobster.
The blue prawn is roasted dry, no fat, in a 500-degree oven for about 6 minutes. The lobster onto the flat top.
And just let them cook. They cook extremely quickly, and we cook them from the shell side. And once it starts to bubble and it becomes a little bit translucent around the edges, we flip them over. We cook these about medium rare. They're fairly soft in the center. That's how we like them. I think they retain their sweetness that way.
The shrimp are quickly cooked in a little hot olive oil.
Just till they start to change color a little bit.
The lobster is turned once before presentation. The shrimp and half the lobster are served on rice.
And this dish seems to me like it's taking an extremely long time, but we knock this out obviously in the cooking time of about whatever it takes to do the lobster, about six or 7 minutes.
Mixed greens garnish.
Then the last thing is the lobster.
Fuller's restaurant at the Sheraton in Seattle is the domain of the skillful chef Monique Barbeau. Born in Canada, she worked in New York at Le Bernardin, the Quilted Giraffe, and Chanterelle. She won a 1997 Robert Mondavi Culinary Award of Excellence. Here's the variety of shellfish with a tomato-based sauce. The base of the sauce is a tomato compote using peeled tomatoes.
And once, to get the seeds out, it's best if you cut the tomatoes in the middle. And then with a glass bowl, no, not a glass bowl, a bowl, you want to gently de-seed the tomato and just squeeze gently on the tomato and all the seeds will fall out. So you want a de-seeded tomato, no seeds. The seeds will cause a bitterness in the tomato paste. And then you want to rough chop the tomatoes. Just very rough, don't need to spend too much time chopping. You want to start cooking your tomatoes to begin the tomato paste, and you want to make sure the pan's pretty hot. You want to let all the water from the tomatoes evaporate so the tomato paste isn't really loose and watery. And you want to add a little shallot and garlic to that as it's cooking down. You can add some fresh herb to that, but before you add the fresh herb, you want to deglaze with some red wine vinegar. And then when most of the liquid's evaporated, you want to deglaze with the red wine vinegar. And then once that's all reduced down, that would be your paste for the fricassee.
Finally, fresh herbs.
And then you can finish off with your fresh chopped herbs.
A butter mixture will finish the tomato sauce.
So you just add, you make almost like a compound butter with garlic and shallots and fresh parsley, and you want to season it with lemon juice and salt and pepper. And you want to keep, once it's all mixed together, you want to keep it in the refrigerator so it will emulsify nicely into the fresh tomato sauce. And a couple squirts of lemon, salt and pepper. And you can add a little more garlic if you prefer it to be a little garlicky, but equal parts garlic to shallot is about what you should do. And then you have the compound butter.
Shallots are softened in olive oil, using 2 pans for steaming the shellfish.
You want to add a little white wine and some fish stock. And then you want to steam open your shellfish, saving the oysters to last because they don't take as long to cook. Making sure that the shellfish is being cleaned and the mussels have been debearded.
The clams and mussels are cooked in separate pans, covered. After they have opened, the liquid in the pan becomes part of the sauce. The oysters will go in at the end.
You want to transfer them to a pot to keep them warm while you finish your sauce.
The clams are removed from the liquid, then the oysters are added.
The oysters can be added in to one of the sauté pans and just lightly poached.
They are poached very quickly.
You can also add singing scallops or any sort of mollusk to this dish. So now you have some white wine, the fish stock, some shallots to begin your sauce with.
The cooking liquid begins the sauce.
You want to add a little bit of heavy cream. Then you want to add add your homemade tomato paste. And once that comes to a boil, you want to finish it with your garlic butter, a little lemon juice, and salt and pepper. The oysters can sit just on top. Then you want to swirl in a little bit of your garlic butter. And finish cooking that.
Basil chiffonade will garnish.
And you want to finish the sauce with a little lemon juice, salt and pepper, and then just nappe the sauce over the shellfish. And then garnish it with a little basil. And that's the dish.
Stephanie Quigley was born in Minnesota and attended the University of Florida. After working in several restaurants, she joined the staff at the Governor's Club in 1982. In 1989, she became a certified pastry chef. Her dessert is an interesting meringue affair called Gâteau l'Orange. The foundation of this dessert is meringue, which is started by adding sugar to beaten egg whites.
This continues beating till it's firm peak. And I slow the mixer and add the almond extract. And the vanilla extract.
After mixing, a combination of ground almonds and cornstarch is added.
I fold it gently so as not to break the meringue. Then I pipe the meringue mixture inside this circle, holding it straight up and down.
Three of these discs will be formed.
With my spatula, I flatten it. The meringues are now ready to be placed in a 200-degree oven for about 2 hours.
Buttercream is started with sugar, cornstarch, and heavy cream.
And cook it over a medium heat till it comes to a boil and is thickened.
The hot mixture is then poured over chopped white chocolate in a method similar to making ganache.
And I stir until the white chocolate is melted, and I place it in an ice bath to chill. You can chill this overnight. And I stir in the grated orange zest, 2 tablespoons.
The mixture is chilled overnight, then combined with butter in an electric mixer.
When the mixture is whipped, I slow the mixture down to half speed, and I gradually add the butter. Make sure all your butter is in the bowl. And I add a couple ounces of Grand Marnier to taste a little bit.
Beat until the mixture is smooth and has at least doubled in volume. Vanilla and orange zest are also added to the buttercream.
All right. The next step is to trim the meringues. You want them to fit within the diameter of your cake circle. I even off the top so they'll stack quite well on top of each other. And I go around the sides just to even the meringue. And I put about 3/4 of a cup of the buttercream mixture on the meringue.
This procedure is repeated 2 more times.
I put the final meringue upside down so you'll be sure to have a flat surface.
The entire cake is frosted with the buttercream, and it will be refrigerated overnight.
And you smooth it as well as you can. This is a very soft buttercream.
The cake is served with creme